Now, a Jimmy Mathis exclusive, The Stone Zone, featuring Roger Stone, veteran of 30 years in politics and 9 presidential campaigns, including Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, and Donald Trump. Here is Jimmy Mathis on WBAL News Radio 1090 and the WBAL app.
Here in America, we don't give in to our fears. We don't build up walls to keep people out because we know that our greatness has always depended on contributions from people who were born elsewhere, but sought out this country and made it their home.
Michelle Obama, speaking at the City College of New York, went on to say that the fear that Donald Trump is stirring up right now is un-American. Right now, we are joined by Roger Stone every Sunday, 9 a.m., the Stone Zone. Good morning, Roger. How you doing?
Good morning. Maybe Hillary didn't see those Mexican protesters attacking people in San Jose, hitting people in the heads, throwing bricks. Maybe she didn't see any of that.
Yeah, well, and Michelle was the one making those remarks. Keep in mind, Michelle was the one back when her husband became president, said this was the first time that she was proud to be an American. Back to the riots in San Jose. Look, every time I see one of these situations develop at a Trump event, I think that this works in Donald Trump's favor. When you see people that are burning the American flag, waving the flag of their mother country, this ties into everything that he has built his campaign on over the last year.
You know, it's amazing. I read a piece yesterday I flew in from Texas last night. Actually, one of the protesters, quote unquote, seen in San Jose turns out to be the exact same fellow who was seen protesting outside of Trump Tower only 2 weeks ago. It kind of proves the point, which is this is agitprop. In other words, these are faux demonstrations. This is all paid for and fomented by George Soros, MoveOn.org, Black Lives Matter, and the Hillary Clinton operation. They are all supporters of Hillary Clinton. I agree with you. I think this is 1968. People clearly see this on television. They say, look, I'm either with them or I'm against them. And I think it redounds to Donald Trump's benefit at the end of the day.
What is going on with these protests? It's not that many people. They had roughly 400 protesters there, and there were roughly 250 officers. So I don't know at what level there was a stand-down order, but this was allowed to happen. I hear you on the George Soros possibly funding it. Again, this never works out for the Democrats. I mean, look here in Baltimore with the riots. You look in Ferguson. It cost our police commissioner his job, our mayor her job. What is the end game in all of this? Because just looking at this from afar, Roger, it makes no sense to me at all. Obviously, if you have 400 cops and 250 protesters, the cops are in full riot gear. This was allowed to happen. It bodes bad for the Democrats in San Jose. It looks good for Donald Trump. What is the end game in all this? What am I missing?
I think what they're trying to do is to disqualify Donald Trump for about a third of the Sanders voters. In other words, while Donald Trump is probably unlikely to win the hard left votes of Bernie Sanders, there are a lot of blue-collar, working-class Democrats who realize they have been left out by NAFTA, they've been left out by the New World Order, that these that these enormous globalist trade agreements are sucking the jobs out of America. And I think the Clinton people recognize that if one-third of the Sanders voters were to vote for Trump, which is, I think, entirely doable, that Trump will win. So this is a preemptive move to disqualify Trump among those very voters. In other words, Trump is a bigot. Trump is a racist. Trump is trigger happy. He's going to blow up the world. We heard that one before. This is like a Goldwater recycle.
Right.
It is all meant to scare those voters away from Trump. I think that is the narrow objective here. And who knows if it'll work? It remains to be seen. I think these demonstrations backfire.
Well, you have Hillary Clinton coming out holding her press conference last week, basically framing around just that. Do you really want Donald Trump's finger on the button? I don't know if I want Donald Trump's finger on the button. I can tell you right now, Hillary has a proven track record when it comes to foreign policy. I would rather my puppy have its finger on the button than Hillary Clinton.
Well, put it this way. I'd rather have Donald Trump with his finger on the button because Hillary would sell the button to the Russians for a bribe.
It's true. Right. It's true.
I think her fundamental problem has not changed, which is people don't trust her because she's fundamentally dishonest. The Clinton Foundation is the largest single money laundering operation in U.S. criminal history. The whole thing is a scam. It is not a charity. It's a slush fund for grifters. But more precisely, it is a vehicle for the facilitation of multi-million-dollar bribes. So you have several kind of issues here, and I view them in sort of three clusters. One, you have the entire question of Bill Clinton's abuse of women, his sexual assaults against women, in which Hillary has been an accessory in threatening and bullying and intimidating them. That is one issue. You have her incompetence as Secretary of State, where she has systematically inserted our enemies in control of many of the countries in the Middle East and deposed our allies. And then, of course, you have the epic stealing and graft of the Clinton Foundation, which extends to both Bill and Chelsea. That's the big three. Donald Trump gets it. The bottom line of it is, if he drives those three issues, he will win this election. If he gets but if he gets distracted by Mexican judges and Trump University, which is a non-issue in my opinion, then perhaps she can win. But if he stays focused on those three vulnerabilities, I think this contest is his to lose.
Roger, let's talk about Trump University for a second, because I look at this as just an example of the brilliance with Donald Trump. Okay, you can say that the remarks that he made on whether this judge should recuse himself or not is right or wrong. The reality is Donald Trump once again changed the entire conversation and was able to basically make the judge is the one that is now being judged, has become the story, has owned the narrative. Right, wrong, indifferent, whatever. But this shows the ability for Donald Trump able to control a situation, control the narrative, and own it. And that's as simply as I look at it.
I'm not sure that I disagree with that in any way. However, I think it's outrageous that the media has spent so much time on Trump University, yet we see very little coverage of Laureate Education, a scandal involving the Clintons with a for-profit college where people through a boiler room were induced to lay on enormous amounts of personal debt. Bill not only got $16 million in fees, but he hid those fees illegally for 5 years. They were never disclosed. Now it turns out that Hillary's State Department gave Laureate $55 million. They picked up another $150 million from the International Finance Corporation. This chain of schools was a scam. It was a high-pressure boiler room operation to force students to take on enormous personal debt. So you want to talk about an education scandal? Just in terms of raw numbers, this is 100 times larger than Trump University, which was, frankly, a very successful real estate course with a 96% approval rating of its students. Yeah, a couple people graduated, and then they didn't become millionaires, and they weren't happy, so they sued.
Right.
It's interesting that the Democrat Attorney General of New York, Eric Schneiderman, met with both Donald Trump and his daughter and said, this is a nothing case. This case would go away if I got some campaign contributions.
But again, the media is going to cover what the media is going to cover, okay? And they're always going to be a hole in the water for the Clintons, and that's not going to change. And the media is going to treat Donald Trump the way the media is going to treat Donald Trump if he becomes president. And I look at this as him owning the conversation once again. And this has nothing to do with the judge. It's just, but rhetorically speaking, it's fascinating to watch how Donald Trump is able to bat the mainstream media around like a bear, playing with a cub almost. It's fascinating.
Well, and it's because he has the forum. He has the bully pulpit. First of all, he has 100% name ID. Everyone knows who he is. And now he's a presumptive Republican nominee. And therefore, as much as they hate it, you see, they have to cover what he says. And that's the problem, because you're right. Otherwise, if he doesn't raise Laureate University,
right,
don't be counting on the Baltimore Sun or the New York Times to raise it, because that's not going to happen. They're too busy writing about Trump University.
Quickly before I let you go, Roger, talking to Roger Stone, former Donald Trump top advisor. Last week you and I were discussing when House Speaker Paul Ryan would endorse Trump. That happened last week, and then minutes later he comes out and denounces Trump on this Mexican judge thing. Trump has always sort of marched to the beat of his own drum. Paul Ryan looks like a fool these days. Does it almost make sense for Trump to distance himself from the speaker? Because I don't see a whole lot of credibility with Paul Ryan these days, or Mitch McConnell, but especially Paul Ryan.
I don't think it would hurt Trump at all. Frankly, I think the imprimatur of establishment endorsers, particularly Paul Ryan, a guy who's an open borders guy, a guy who supports the Puerto Rico bailout, for example.
Right.
Look, the whole irony of Republican members of Congress who presided over an 80% increase in the national debt to about $13 trillion, deciding whether they should soil themselves by endorsing Donald Trump is outrageous.
Right, which again, right, I agree with you. I think right now any support from Paul Ryan is a liability for Donald Trump. And looking at the calculated moves by the speaker over the last couple of weeks, it's an illustration of why there is so much frustration within the Republican Party right now. It's because of the moves by Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell.
Yeah, the Republican leadership is akin to the Democratic leadership. This election has to be viewed in a different way. It is not Republicans versus Democrats, not anymore. This is the Republicans and Democrats together versus Donald Trump and the United States of America. Frankly, I don't think there's any great value in Paul Ryan's endorsement. I think you'd be stronger to have him attacking you because he is part of the problem. He is viewed as a Washington insider, responsible, at least partially responsible, for the very policies that have brought us where we are today.
Roger Stone, always a pleasure. Roger Stone, former Donald Trump top advisor, also author of his new book, The Clintons' War on Women, also Jeb and the Bush Crime Family. Always a pleasure, Roger. Thank you very much.
Please ask your folks to visit rogerstone.com to pick up your copy of The Clintons' War on Women. This is the book Hillary Clinton does not want you to read. Many thanks, Jimmy.
Thank you, Roger. Roger Stone joins us every Sunday at 9 a.m. Quick break. We'll be right back. You're listening to The Jimmy Mathis Show on WBL News Radio 1090.